welcome to Zirkzank Says. I've just remembered a while ago that I had some of the good old Lucozade left in my fridge, and I've just cracked some of that open, so I'm feeling pretty good. But you know, I came to think recently playing Elysium, the World of Warcraft private server that is a vanilla private server. Just once again, the idea of nostalgia and living in the past, trying to capture that kind of sweet memories and back when things were good, things were better in the past and they're not as good now. It's an ongoing theme that I think a lot of people seem to resonate quite well with, and it just makes me think, is there anything that genuinely is better about the past? And I think yes, there is. It's like there are elements of culture and elements of the past that if we move forwards too fast, we might lose out on those elements of the past, and some of them do need to be brought back. It's something that Jordan Peterson goes on about a lot. It's rescuing your dead father from the belly of the whale. That's the Pinocchio metaphor for the revival of the good elements of the culture after the bad bits have burnt away. It's, a constant cycle of rebirth, bringing back old bits of culture, old bits of wisdom, and then putting them into the future to make a better overall image and better overall everything that you're trying to do, just to be better and gooder based on your experience. I know gooder is not a word, but what I'm saying really is that they need to bring back the sugar for Lucozade. That's a long and roundabout way of saying it, and trying to use different aspects and reasoning that isn't just entirely related to this specifically, but I don't know, some change for to the future. You cut out the bad and as it's called, pruning. In the case of World of Warcraft, I guess that's what they've done for this as well. They've pruned away the unnecessary sugar, except I would argue that the sugar was necessary. Some people really relied on Lucozade for glucose. I remember there was this kid survives on Lucozade. Go search that up on Google. And there's this kid who has a rare condition, and it's very rare. But basically his body can't digest protein. If he eats any food, he'll die, or something like that. So basically, he can't consume protein, I think. And so basically he has to just drink Lucozade in order to survive because of the high glucose content, and obviously the body can survive, his body is able to survive on the glucose within Lucozade. But people like that, kids like that, he's gonna fucking die now. Well, I don't know if he's actually gonna die, but I don't know, the amount of sugar in there, it should be an option for people who want it, and not forced upon people who don't want it. So at the beginning of Lucozade's birth, they brought out recently in Lucozade, they brought out a sugar-free version alongside the full sugar version, the like 30 grams per 250 milliliter version, alongside a zero sugar version, which is fine because a lot of energy drinks and a lot of drinks companies have been doing this. Here's the diet version, no sugar version, 0 calorie version, and here's the full sugar version. Choose which one you want, and it's fine. It's like, okay, I'll choose the one with sugar because it tastes better and I want the sugar. I specifically wanted high glucose content. I mean, you can eat bananas. This is the same banana I used in another video. I haven't eaten it yet, so as you can see, it's gone a little bit more brown on the outside. I can still get that glucose from other sources, but it's just like, I'd rather drink Lucozade than eat a banana because it's nicer, it's more refreshing, it's cooler, and it's a much more enjoyable experience to drink Lucozade than to eat a banana. But I've made my case and point in that over and over again, and it just seems an unnecessary cutback. If they're doing it in financial interest, then so be it, but genuinely, if people stop buying Lucozade because they don't like the taste of it, they'll have learned their lesson, I guess, and then try and bring it back with full sugar. That's one situation of that. But it seems that people's willingness to just go along with the flow, is pretty intense and insane, and are not reliable enough to put any kind of pressure onto the companies to provide a better service to the customers. I mean, the same thing goes back to World of Warcraft once again. They kept the music the same. Like, you walk around Azeroth in a vanilla client, and all the music will be the same, pretty much. And that's like, that would be the final straw. I mean, RuneScape did that. They massively fucked up. They got the old music and then replaced it with new music, which was actually recorded music as opposed to MIDI music, which is, played on the computer in real time, rendered using virtual instruments in the MIDI format, which is like quite a short list of about 16 different instruments. So they pre-recorded it all with an orchestra, but the guys that they got to do it decided to take too many artistic liberties and ended up changing music from the original. Now, you could argue that, well, you need to forget about the old stuff and then just go with the new. But there are other videos that I've seen that discuss why new music sucks compared to the old music. That's an oversimplification, saying it sucks. You can't really... Well, why does it doesn't suck? It's like, it's less memorable and less enjoyable, less impactful. And it's to do with the fidelity of the instruments that were involved, and I think to do with the amount of care that the artists put into it. But once again, that's a pretty subjective opinion. Though you could make the case for games like World of Warcraft, which has slowly gone downhill, and then gone downhill really, really rapidly towards recent times, is just that developers and artists, if you want to call them artists and creators, the developers, I know it sounds stupid to say that they had passion and now they don't have passion, but genuinely the company has been bought over and over again by other corporations, like, for example, Activision buying Blizzard, and then from that point onwards the game just going downhill. People in good positions, people from the original team, people who had an artistic vision, people who had conflicts and disagreements until the best idea won, they'd fight it out and then get something that everyone wanted as a final product. It just doesn't happen anymore, and that's really disappointing, to be honest, because there are a lot of elements within the older stuff that just is a lot better and feels a lot better. I've made videos about this before explaining why it's not just nostalgia, it's genuine. You take an objective standpoint and say things that you get in vanilla World of Warcraft are more rewarding than they are in the retail version. The experience is way more community driven than being a single player experience. There are advantages to having a single player experience. I mean, if not everyone has friends to play with, but the point being that you can interact with people in the world. And it's like, oh, well, if you can't interact with those people, or if you didn't want to because you have some social anxiety where you don't want to ask somebody nearby you to help you with a quest, it's like, well, just don't do the quest, or try and get over your social anxiety. It's like, okay, well, no, neither of those are going to work, so they have to put in a single player campaign for people like that. But they shouldn't have taken away so much focus away from group play. I mean, you've still got raids, mythic raids, which are difficult, and then raid finder raids, group finder, and all of this. There is a lot of group content in the live version of World of Warcraft still, but in the world of Warcraft, the World of Warcraft world, there isn't any real... You don't walk up to somebody and give them a buff and wave at them and say, hey, do you know where this thing is? Yeah, it's over there, helping each other, communication and stuff. It just felt a lot more enjoyable in vanilla, and it still does in like 2017 versions of vanilla, which is what I'm trying to get at, and say that the vanilla experience is still good compared to the live version, the retail version of World of Warcraft. Even however many years later, 13, 14 years later, it is still a better experience. And that's not entirely subjective. That's based on the reward and resource availability and just overall economy of the game. The balance issues, obviously, I say if vanilla was more balanced, maybe it would be perfect. But the only thing that the live version has over the vanilla version is that it's more balanced. That's it. Anyway, that's a 10-minute intro to something else that I wanted to talk about. I'm talking a lot about Elysium, but I wanted to actually talk about Elysium, the film, which I watched recently, and it's relevant to a lot of what I was saying in previous videos. Basically, if you don't know, I'm probably going to spoil bits of this film for you, but it doesn't matter because it's a bad film. It has Matt Damon in, and that's it. It's a Matt Damon action movie. So what it's about, I explain this here. This scene shows you in the future things got there's some overpopulation. I think you can. Overpopulation is not really to be the case, but the world got really shitty, and the wealthiest people fled to a space station known as it's going to show you in the clip here. This Taurus, it's based on the Stanford Taurus model that NASA made up in the 70s. This is a space station that spins and uses centrifugal force to create artificial gravity, which keeps people on the ground, and it keeps the air, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the carbon dioxide, it keeps that all within the structure. Now, this bit is right at the start of the film, so I'm just showing you this. That's probably, most likely, what the future is going to consist of, people living on space stations like that. Not entirely, obviously, because as the film highlights, not everyone can afford to go and live on a space station like that. And then that's what the rest of the entire film is about. There's this kid who has dreams of going up to there, and instead of earning money and becoming a productive member of society, instead, this is a spoiler, but like I said, it doesn't matter, it's a shit film. He just steals, he just breaks the law and makes it so that everyone can go there, even though not every human being on Earth can fit on Elysium. It's pretty pointless. So basically, they say, hey, if we can't have what they have, we'll just make it shit for them so no one can have it. It's like, hey, I see that you've worked really hard on that thing that you have. You've just made something that's really nice, but because you're not letting me have any of it, I'm going to destroy it. Then neither of us can have it. It's a very selfish and very disgusting ethic that the film tries to teach you, is that crime is okay, murder is okay. It's okay to kill somebody if they're rich. It's okay to steal from rich people because they don't deserve what they have anyway. They portray the rich people in this film as being assholes, which is fine, because there are assholes who have money. There are people who aren't assholes who also have money. But, what does it matter? The antagonists in this film have to be assholes in order to justify the fact that they killed for literally no reason other than the fact that they had better circumstances in life. Maybe they had more opportunities to gain wealth. I mean, the film starts out where the protagonist is saying right, that's it. I've given up on stealing cars. I'm not going to be a thief anymore. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm not going to be a criminal anymore. I'm going to work hard, earn some money, and work my way up the ladder so that I can finally be part of this big country club in space. Because that's essentially what Elysium is. It's just, it's a space elite suburb, country club, whatever you want to call it, where they have all the best technology and all the smartest people, all the richest people, all the best looking people, and so on and so on. It's just like paradise. It's heaven, so to speak, technically, from a metaphorical perspective. But it's most likely that this is probably what's going to end up happening, whether it's people going to a space station, or whether it's just people going to a city and then walling other poorer people or people they don't like out of it. I mean, there's already a lot of civil unrest right now, and there's already a lot of people losing their jobs to automation and machines. So you can immediately see that there's, for example, in England, there's been a push for with Brexit and the rise of Trump in the US, there's like a lot of people wanting nationalism, who really, really want nationalism, and then there's a lot of people on the other side who really, really want socialism and globalism. So you've got people who want nationalism and capitalism, and then people who want socialism and globalism, and it's just a very divisive time period. And the most likely scenario is that people are just going to keep getting more and more divided on this, to the point where you just have a branch where it's like, fuck it. There aren't enough jobs to sustain a society where everybody has to work for their keep, as in like a capitalist society has been, because there aren't enough jobs being generated, because machines are taking jobs faster than they're making jobs for people. Eventually it will get to a point where to have a society that's still the same number of people, you'd probably end up having to have people given stuff for free. But at that point, you've just degenerated into socialism, and the richest people, the wealthiest people, having to give away their stuff to other people who haven't earned it. Now, you can make arguments for both, and people do make arguments for both, saying why one is good, one is bad, the other's good, and so on and so on. But either way, the point being that it's more likely to end up, something along the lines of this whole some people have technology and then people don't. I mean, you could argue that it already is somewhat like that, in the sense that there are the people in the West, like, for example, I don't know, I'll just use the country, I mean England, compared to some people in like most African countries, like Ethiopia. They just, these countries are just desert and like sand or jungle, and the people who live there don't have much technology. The technology that would increase their lifespans and their quality of life, as in they would have less predators and less diseases, less illnesses, and better medical treatment overall, better diet, which would mean they'd be healthier, which would mean that they would have better mental and physical health. So when I say better quality of life, I don't just mean this lifestyle, I mean they'd be better off in, the longevity of their life. You could argue that, these tribes, these Africans, they don't need this, but it's like, if people are starving to death but if someone's starving to death and you have the potential to help them and you don't, that's what I'm getting at here, really. It's like, we have the potential to help places like all these people in Africa, people starving around the globe, even homeless people within the countries that have all the wealth. You don't go around giving homeless people food and money. So why would you expect that going towards the future there wouldn't be just a class of people who say, fuck it, let's not give anything to anyone who don't deserve it? And you make quite a decisive claim like that, and then you do end up with something like Elysium. See if I can get another clip of it up here. That whole paradise for rich people thing. It's like, why would you not end up with this? Why would you not end up with this, or even something approximating that on Earth, if there's the shit place for all the poor people who were not smart enough or hardworking enough to get out of that situation, or not lucky enough, because it's most of the time it's luck, then why wouldn't you flee Earth? Or why wouldn't you make like a separate place that you can't get into? Why would you not put up borders and walls and just distance yourself from the plebs? That's what is the most likely scenario. This is why I was on board with this film up until the point where it was a shit film. Because I mean, conceptually, it's good social good political commentary. It makes sense. It's reasonable. But as a film and there's a story and the characters are fucking boring. Can't get attached to any of the characters. They're not interesting. It's kind of shit. So enough of that. But that's what I want to say. Really, I think that's what the future is more likely to consist of, and that people aren't really willing to stick to the, what do you say it? Traditional. Stick to tradition. It's like what has been working and does works. Why change it? But you say, well, I mean, I get the need for progress, the desire for progress. It's exciting. You always need to be exploring, bringing unknown things into known truth and understanding. It's important. You always need to evolve, otherwise you stagnate. You know, that's what nature has proven. But to what extent, overall as a species, are we going to allow for such a continuation of the current scenario? I don't think it's going to be much. It really doesn't seem like there's going to be any kind of, I don't want to say like revolution or any kind of big thing. I'm just saying that the current rate of change is fast enough that within, I think it's like 30 years or so, nobody will be able to work for money. So people will either have to get free money given to them by the government based on machine labor, or based on their own labor, and then just have massive class division. Because current society, current social model, it doesn't work. I don't support socialism, though. I don't like that model of saying, hey, everyone just gets free money. It's like, you can justify it if you get the kind of Star Trek universe, Star Trek scenario where anyone can have anything they want, just materialized at will. And it's like, well, you don't need money in a society where anyone can just have matter generated into something that they want. It's like, well, if you don't have to earn it, why would you want it? What's the reward? What's the value in something that you didn't earn? Then you start to look for, deeper meaning, like a life purpose. And so, hey, let's just go discover shit around the galaxy. That's the Star Trek kind of thing. Like, who needs material meaning when you can have spiritual meaning and intellectual meaning? Your purpose is do things rather than get things, which, I don't know, that's reasonable. But we're not quite at that stage yet. So it's like, we're not at that technological stage that anyone can have anything they want, and it doesn't really cost anyone anything. We're at a stage where it would cost the higher up people a lot of money, and they tend to be quite greedy. Right, I need to go back onto that in a second and say that there's a small percentage of very wealthy people who are unpleasant and greedy, but the majority of people who have more than enough wealth are often generous people. Plus, rich people generate the most taxes. I don't know if you realize this, but because they have more money, even if they're taxed at a flat tax rate, they still generate more tax than 99% of people do in their entire life. So, you may hate the 1%, but it's because of their wealth that we even have an economy. Now, all of this political stuff aside, I still think they should put more sugar back into Lucozade. Thanks for watching.